Let's begin by talking about the times we live in. Now, I'm reminded of a saying, I don't know who said it, but it goes something like this, that if the world buys only what they need and not what they desire, the global economy would collapse. Now, I recall this sentiment because I believe this is what has happened to the Indian economy in the last 8 weeks. We have really been buying only the essentials, what we really need, and not what we desire. Because we have not gone out, we've not visited restaurants, we've not visited cinemas, we've not met friends, we've not socialized, we've not gone to work, we've not bought petrol, we've not bought shirts, we've not bought saris, and that is why we are in a mess that we are. Now, it is indeed true that, all of us, I'm sure every single person in the audience, we have with us in our possession, and we have a lot more than what we actually need, I would say, to even live life comfortably. But then, unfortunately, that is the way of the world today, and that is how the economy keeps rotating. The lockdown in India, I understand, has been more severe compared to most other parts of the world. And that is why our economy has got affected a little more than most other economies. Now, what has the lockdown done? My understanding is that, essentials like FMCG, say in the food area, are today operating at, 50 to 60%. Toiletries are operating at 30 to 50%. But on the other hand, there is a complete collapse in the market for four-wheelers, two-wheelers, durables, textile. At the retail level, malls, restaurants, cinemas, salons, spas, and most service organizations have seen a complete collapse of their business activity. Now, whilst all this is happening at India Incorporated, let us see what has happened to us in advertising. The impact on advertising, predictably, has been, to put it mildly, severe. Estimates put the collapse of advertising in the month of April 20 by as much as 75 to 85%. Imagine a drop in ad X of 75 to 85%. Hitesh mentioned that I've been in my professional life for 35 years, but Hitesh, that's not actually true. I've been in my professional life for 48 years. So in another 2 years, I complete 50 years. And nowhere, I mean, at no time have I seen a situation that we are in now where the advertising industry has collapsed by 75 to 85%. And the estimates for May are also not very encouraging. Our or rather my estimate is that in May the collapse would be to the tune of 60 to 80%, depending on through which lens you are looking at the market. Now, considering that Jan, Feb, March were also not strong months for advertising, it is now almost certain that the mass media advertising business is going to contract in 2020. Remember, ADEX, which was at 67,000 crores, was in fact projected to grow by about 10% to 75,000 crores by the Pitch Madison Advertising Outlook report, which we author every year. Even digital, I presume a lot of you are digital agencies in the audience, which has been growing by leaps and bounds. I believe it has grown on an average at a compounded annual average growth rate of about 30% for the last 10 years. And it was projected to grow again at 28%, is likely to grow only marginally. And what is worse is that estimates project that economic recovery is likely to take as much as 6 to 24 months. So the optimistic put the recovery at 6 months, the pessimistic put it at 24 months. So it does look like a V-shaped recovery for the economy. The Indian economy is going to be difficult, and we have to recognize that we are probably going to see a U-shaped recovery. Government's bombastic 20 lakh crore stimulus package is also, if I may say so, not exactly a stimulus package which could help a V-shaped recovery. Nevertheless, I would say it's a good reforms package, and I think the government has taken advantage of the current situation to push through a lot of good reforms, which I think will help India achieve its growth rate of around 8 to 10% in another 2 to 3 years. So all said and done, the package put out by the government is not bad and good for the country as a whole, but it's unlikely to help us recover fast from the mess that we are currently in. You know, a particular reform that I'd like to call out is the elimination of APMC, which was set up originally to protect actually farmers' prices that they can get from the market, but actually degenerated into something else. So the removal of that, I believe, will give more remunerative prices to farmers, and this should dramatically contribute to increase rural prosperity in the next 2 to 3 years. And also, I think for the digital audience here, I think it should increase digital adoption by rural audiences, which is all very good news in the near term, that is 2 to 3 years. Now, I think the question arises, what should brands do at a time like this? I think the first thing is, and the most critical, is that they should remain authentic. They should not try to take temporary or short-term advantage of the vulnerability of people and their consumers on account of coronavirus. And very important from my point of view is to find, brands should find ways and means of staying alive in consumers' mind. I think this is critically important. You know, a particular slide that I recall put out by Kantar uh, in their presentation some time ago highlighted that strong brands recover in the market much, much faster than actually weak brands. And therefore, I believe all brands, whether they are strong or weak, should not abandon their presence at a time like this. I know all companies would be extremely hard pressed for cash at this time, and the normal tendency would be to stay away from advertising. However, I think, brands should find their own ways, and I believe agencies should help them stay alive in the market, in the marketing, in the consumer's mind, using innovative ways. For example, social media and influencer marketing, which at a time like this should not cost too much, should be used aggressively to somehow stay in consumers' mind. One brand that stands out for me in recent times is Asian Paints. Asian Paints is an iconic paint company, originally a paint company. Now you could call them a home care or almost a lifestyle company. And it's a very strong company. Recently, I saw that they were one of the first to come up with a advertising campaign, which was an extension of their Har Ghar Kuch Kehta Hai. And the campaign was created actually by their agency and the film producer, all sitting in their respective homes. And I believe they were one of the first to come up with the campaigns, not really exploiting the coronavirus situation, but taking advantage of the fact that their consumers are sitting at home and perhaps not very happy over doing that. So, highlighting to them the simple joys of staying at home. In fact, today's brand equity of the Economic Times has an interview by Amit Singhal, and see what he has to say about what brands should do, or rather, what Asian Paints is doing at a time like this. He says, it is easier to cut marketing spends and say we will come back when the market bounces back. But brand building is not so simple. There's no on-off switch. We are committed to building our brand with a 360 degree approach, reaching out to customers, providing assurance and trust, and holding their hands through this difficult time are paramount. Well said, Amit. And this is what I believe most brands should do. And as agencies, this is what our advice should be to brands. And this is how, as agencies, we should innovatively help brands achieve this without spending too much money. One of the adages that we follow at Madison is that big ideas can work better than big budgets. And I believe at a time like this, it is time for us as intelligent, clever, effective agencies to demonstrate this to our clients that yes, we are capable of innovative ideas and big ideas that do not cost the earth, but yet at a time like this, endear consumers to our brands. I would request all of you in the agency world to really apply this principle to all of your brands that you handle and go to your clients with such new, innovative, big ideas that can help them overcome the current crisis. Not only will your clients, appreciate you for this, not only will your clients' brands benefit from this, but you will also directly benefit by, sealing your relationship with the client for a long time to come, which actually makes me talk about. So, at a time like this, what should agencies do? Now, I already told you what you should do with clients. I think this is not the time to go to clients with ideas that, you know, make it imperative for them to open their wallets substantially. But I think we must be transparent, and I think we must expect our clients also to be transparent with us, tell us what their problem is, tell us if at all they can allocate restricted money, small amount of budget to keep the brand alive, and see how we can use this money most intelligently with good ideas, and also persuade our media partners to contribute their might to make an interesting package. I think we need to also be transparent with our employees. I think we need to tell our employees what the real situation is. We need to not, camouflage what the real financial situation is by pretending that everything is well. Everything cannot be well if the market has collapsed by 80 to 85%, and the strongest of agencies could soon go through some financial stress. And therefore, I think as agency management, I think we'll have to take a lot of aggressive steps. I recently read a very good article in one of our industry magazines where even Madison CFO is quoted, and he has put together a wonderful set of measures which he thinks agencies should undertake, most important of which is to conserve cash. This is the time, for example, to put a complete freeze on all hiring, including replacements. This is the time to put a complete freeze on any discretionary expenditure. This is the time to put a freeze on all capital expenditure, however essential it may be, and the like, because it's quite clear that at a time like this, cash is king. You would have read in today's Economic Times in the front page that most of the large companies, or many of them, are in the market to raise thousands of crores of rupees to help them survive through this crisis. So I believe as agency managements also, we will have to tighten the belt and, not sort of become an ostrich and hide our face in the sand and pretend that nothing is wrong or that nothing untoward is going to happen. My approach at a time like this would be to hope for the best, but in fact, plan for the worst. I repeat, hope for the best and plan for the worst. And it is incumbent on agency managements to take active steps to plan for the worst, to conserve resources, to save money, or to stretch their money so that it lasts for a long time, even if this economic downturn is going to continue. Nobody knows how soon the advertising market is going to recover. We, in my optimistic way, I feel we should see a recovery by Diwali, and spurred by the festivities and the festive mood and festive occasion, we should that should spur demand. uh, I cannot agree, unfortunately, with our finance minister who says that she has done a lot for stimulating demand. I feel not enough has been done to stimulate demand, which is really necessary to keep the economy moving round. The three A's of I, the apex body of advertising agencies, also had made a representation to the finance minister. And one of the recommendations that we made to her was actually to allow amortization of advertising spend made during the current year over the next 3 years. I do not know if the finance minister is going to accept this suggestion, but I believe if she were to accept it, I think it would go a long way in stimulating demand. Currently, as I see it, unfortunately, we are a little caught in a downward spiral. People, companies, advertisers are not advertising, because of which demand is low, because of which cash is low, because of which advertisers are not advertising. We need to reverse this and make it into an upward spiral. By an upward spiral, I mean people advertise, because of which demand is spurred. Because demand is spurred, sales increase. Because sales increase, companies have more cash. Because companies have more cash, they advertise more. Because they advertise more, demand goes up and the cycle goes on. That is what I would call is an upward cycle that we must attempt to achieve. But of course, it's easier said than done, to stop a downward spiral from further going down and to reverse it and turn it into an upward spiral requires some major interventions. And unfortunately, the stimulus, I believe, in many other countries could have will play a small role in doing that. But in India, for whatever reason, of course, the major reason being we are relatively a poor nation, we cannot afford that kind of stimulus. So we have to find other interesting ideas to, you know, turn this downward spiral into an upward spiral. Now, I think, you know, the topic given to me is what should entrepreneurs do at a time like this. Whilst I've covered this subject at some length, I thought I would also share with you something which was actually a presentation made by my daughter Lara about when she was asked to make a presentation on Madison 3-4 years after she joined Madison. And I must say, I was delighted with this presentation, and I would like to share some of the some presentation. I was delighted that she titled this presentation "The 13 Immutable Laws of Madison." I say delighted because in my younger days, one of my favorite books on advertising and marketing was The 22 Immutable Laws of Advertising, written by Al Ries and Jack Trout. I liked the book in the early days tremendously for its simplicity, the lucidity with which the thoughts were put out, and also the numerous examples that appeared in the book to lace and bring alive every concept that was propounded in the book. So what are the laws of Madison? And I thought I'd share these with you. Of course, it's not necessary for you to follow them. As you know, there are many different ways to skin a cat. But these are some of the laws that we have followed, which has enabled us to survive for 32 years as an independent company. So the first law is the law of focus. So what our law states, and this is mainly for the promoters, uh, which is, Lara and me, that we will not allow ourselves to be detracted by other businesses. We have defined our business as the business of communication, and we will stay true to this narrowly defined scope of operation throughout. Over the years, we've had many interesting proposals come to us, some in the area of education, some in the area of consumer goods, all kinds of, some in the area of real estate, all kinds of interesting proposals which probably make more money or appear to make more money with less effort than what advertising does or requires. But we have steadfastly stayed away from such, I would say, unnecessary interventions, because we believe we want to make this a focus. So the first thing is the law of focus. A second law is the law of specialization. So we believe, and after the early success we had of our media alone business, we believe that specialization is good in the communication business, just like how it is good in the medical business. What specialization does is that it develops a cadre of people who become experts in their narrow field, and by doing the same thing repeatedly over and over again, they develop a kind of technology to do the job more effectively and more efficiently. And The client recognizes that they're dealing with an expert. The client is benefited by this specialization, and therefore, because also you're able to offer this service at a more competitive price than actually a generalist agency. Or another law is the law of disadvantage. Now, you may well ask, what is the law of disadvantage? A law of disadvantage states, ironically, that it is actually an advantage to know and recognize that you are at a disadvantage. You are at a disadvantage. Why? Because you are small, your resources are limited, say compared to your multinational competition, who are big companies with n number of people and unlimited resources, or so it would seem. And therefore, you have to work harder, smarter, and therefore our adage that, big ideas can work better than big budgets. So, if you have a very large budget, even a dumb idea, you can make it work. But when you have a small idea, it is absolutely essential to have a big idea to make an impact, the same kind of impact that, big bucks can make. So that is our law of disadvantage. I want to then talk about another law, which I believe has played a key role in making Madison mildly successful and also survive these 32 years, which is the law of patience. And I particularly call this out because I know patience is not a virtue of the current generation. Everybody is in a hurry to, achieve things, everybody to become the next Ambani. Everybody wants to become the next Ambani. But I think there has to be a reality check. I think whilst it's good to sort of aim for the stars, I think you also need to have a reality check and understand and be patient and give time to achieve the objectives that you've set for yourself. I think a more recent law or a later law of Madison, and this was not the law of Madison when we started, or even in the first 15 to 20 years of our operation, is the law of long tail. Now, what do I mean by long tail? When Madison first started, and in its early years, especially in the media business, I was a little vain, I must confess, and said, in our media business, we will accept only the bluest of blue chip clients and large enlightened clients to whom we can contribute with our media thinking, and also who have the scale of operation to appreciate our media expertise and prowess. I think over the years, I realized that to make a successful, sustained business, actually need a combination of all clients, large clients, highly reputed clients, world-class names. You also need Indian names, mid-sized clients, and you need. And actually, it is a combination of these three clients that could give you, an opportunity to sort of widen your skill sets and also make you financially more viable. Because it is true that the larger the client, the more demanding he is, and it is increasingly more and more difficult to make money from a large client. Well, another law that we have is the law of change. And I think a lot has been written about change, at least in the last 10 years. But this is critically important, especially when your organization begins to age. I think you have to routinely, every few years, and this number of years is becoming shorter and shorter with passage of time, either allow your organization to naturally evolve, or if it does not evolve naturally, then you've got to force some change. If you don't force it, force that change to recognize the environment you live in, to recognize the compulsions that are there or around you, then I think it's going to be difficult to survive. So I thought I would share with you some of these laws that could possibly, help you give a perspective, and you could draw your own lessons or develop your own law book based on this. I think I should stop now. Am I right, Hitesh? I think I've spoken for long. Perhaps I could now take some questions. Hitesh? Hello, Hitesh. Are you there?
Hello, Sam sir, this is Khyati. I'm going to be the host for this event, and I would like to thank you, sir, for all your insights. And I'm sure these laws that you've given us can be used in any part of the industry, any field that anybody is part of. So it's going to be great insight for everybody out there. So we have a question, sir, from Vaibhav Gupta on how do we get the clients to pay when the payments have been long due, especially for Indian clients.
How do we get payments? Well, I think we have to recognize that our clients are also going through a tough time. And I think we have to give clients a little more time. I'm sure clients will pay up. We have to continuously keep pressure on them. We have to appeal to them. We have to highlight to them that that payment is necessary for our survival, which ultimately is good for them.
Yeah.
But I think we have to be reasonable. I think to expect them to pay on the dot is unreasonable expectation in current times. Also, I think to be fair, I think both the television broadcasters, the radio channels, and the print publications have been quite understanding. However, I think if some clients are to take advantage of the situation and just delay payments, taking advantage of the situation, then I think it is incumbent on us to call such clients out also.
Right. Thank you so much, sir, for answering that question. We also have another question by Amitava Mitra. He says there is likelihood of brands and companies going in for schemes and offers to increase demand. Is this the right strategy? Also, will too much of this hurt brand value? What's the advice to clients?
Well, I think schemes and promotions have always been a part of marketing arsenal. And I think no brand builder really likes this, but unfortunately, they have a small role to play. I think if you overdo it, then I think you're destroying the brand. In 1972, when I started work in my first company, Sarabais or HPMA, we used to have a brand of detergent called Sway. And you'll be surprised to know that when we launched a scheme under which, you could buy a plastic bucket, which was relatively sort of new in those days, for a very low price. When you bought it along with Sway, sales of Sway really shot up. And, we began to have illusions that Sway is going to become a big brand. But guess what? As soon as the bucket scheme was withdrawn, sales completely collapsed. As soon as the bucket scheme was reintroduced, sales again shot up. So, a promotion is not an alternative to brand building. When used judiciously, it helps you balance your books. It helps you give a temporary sort of stimulus to the brand, but it is not sustainable. And you cannot sustain a brand on promotion alone. So it has to be used judiciously. I think at a time like this, we are going to see a lot of promotions. I think once India opens up, I think it is a fact of life that we will see a lot of promotions, because, and to some extent, I would say these promotions are good at a time like this, because it will spur demand, it will give a sort of stimulus for some people who got used to not buying to come out in the market and buy, which is good.
Right. Thank you so much, sir. We have so many questions that are coming in. So to all for the paucity of time, we won't be able to take all questions. But sir, there's one back to your first line on how's your experience acquiring your client?
Well, we two first clients the agency started. One was Godrej and the other was Nelco, a Tata company. I must confess, both of these clients I used to handle and service when I was in Mudra. So when I approached them with the proposition that I am planning to start Madison, they did, consider my proposition and transferred some business to Madison. Now, I must recall one thing, and again, this may be of interest to entrepreneurs in this group, that for the first 5 years of Madison, we did not take a third client, because I thought these clients had placed their trust in me, and I did not want to betray that trust. At that time, Madison was a small organization, our management bandwidth was limited, and therefore I did not want to overextend myself or become greedy for business and, let my two founding clients down.
Right. Thank you so much, sir. For all the other questions, we will try to have Sam sir answer them later on. But thank you for this really insightful session, sir. We thank you with all our heart. Thank you so much.
All right. Bye-bye, Khyati, and bye-bye, everyone.
Thank you so much, sir, for your time.
Bye.
And thank you, Hitesh.